All right, so we're going to talk about the distance and midpoint formulas. And the distance and midpoint formulas are how you find the distance between 2 points and the midpoint between 2 points. So first, we're going to talk about a little vocabulary that line segment means the points, the part of a line, it's part of a line. And it ends, it's finite instead of infinite. Okay, it's finite, it has 2 endpoints. And it's all the points in between those endpoints. Okay, you probably already knew what a line segment was, but actually this is the definition. 2 points and all the points in between them. All right, so a midpoint is the point exactly in the middle of the segment. It divides the segment exactly in half, is another way to say that. Okay, so segment is a brief way of saying line segment. All right, so we're going to plot these 2 points. This is a little bit of review. A is 2, 3. We use capital letters to abbreviate points, and so that's how we name them. And B is 10, 9. So I'm going to go up here and go 10 over and 9 up. I'm going to put a B out there. And I'm going to draw the line segment connecting them. So the line segment is A and B and all the points in between. Now, what if I want to find the midpoint? How do I find that? Well, I'm looking at this, and it looks like it's about here, about. It's a big guess. So let's double check this. Let's see if it's exactly in the middle. Let's count over to B. Let's see, from A. If I do that, let's see, I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 over, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up. Well, 8 over and 6 up. If I'm going 8 over and 6 up, halfway for each of those directions is 8, instead of going 8 over, only going 4 over and 3 up. That is exactly my midpoint. So that's a way to find it by graph. So our midpoint is at 6 rather. I wrote 5, but at 6, 6. So 6, 6. All right, so how do you find the length of AB? Well, I kind of already started that out by drawing this right triangle. Do you remember A squared plus B squared equals C squared? Well, that's what we're going to use. We're going to come up with a formula that you can just plug in the numbers from your coordinates to find it, but we're going to do right triangles because really, essentially, that's what it is. So this is our leg, and this is another leg, and this is called the hypotenuse, okay, of the right triangle, and that's always C. So the little a, that's why it's important that we use little a and little b, is 8 squared. B is 6 equals C. And now we've used square roots to solve. So 64 plus 36 equals C squared. Okay, that means that we have 100 equals C squared. How do I solve that? I square root both sides. Now, we should get plus and minus 10 as an answer, but we're talking about distances here. We're not going to talk about a negative 10 distance. That doesn't make sense. So just 10, like 10 units, 10 inches, 10 something. All right? So flip the page. On the bottom, we're going to plot these points, and we're going to talk about the distance and midpoint. I graphed the 2 points, C and D. Double check, you pause, and make sure that you agree. But let's talk now about the midpoint between C and D. Well, I'm going up, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to go halfway up from 7, so 1, 2, 3.5. And then halfway over for 5, that's 2.5. 1, 2.5. So there's my midpoint right there. And I grab my highlighter and make a big old dot. That's my midpoint. The point is negative 1.5, comma 1.5. All right. So the midpoint is actually a decimal, and that happens quite a bit, and that's okay. it's easier to come up with those decimals when we have a formula. So we're going to do that in a second. So what's the length? Let's use right triangles again. I'm going to draw my right triangles. We said that this length was 5 and that length was 7. So 5 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared. So let's see, 25 plus 49 equals c squared. In other words, 74 equals c squared. So that, when I square root both sides, I can either write my answer as square root of 74 because it does not reduce. That's 37 and 2, and it doesn't break up anymore, so no pairs to take out. You can write it just like that. Or you can write 8.6 is an estimation for the value of the length of CD. By the way, this little way, putting this segment above the top just says the midpoint. It's a segment. You put it up there. The length of CD, segment CD, my segment sign got put way up here for some reason, so it looks a little funny. All right, so let's talk about the formula. So they're a little bit of a long formula, but you can think of all of your points as x2, let's do x1 comma y1, and x2 minus comma y2. So x1 comma y1 and x2 comma y2. Well, if you think of your 2 points like that, just like we did with slope, you can do the midpoint by doing x1 plus x2 over 2. You average the two x values. And the same thing with the y's. You can do that. That's the formula. Distance formula, distance equals, now they have it all solved out, so you don't have to do the square root, but you do the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Square root that whole thing, okay? And what is that really? Well, really, that's a squared plus b squared, all that square rooted. So this is d squared equals a squared plus b squared. It's really just the Pythagorean theorem. With all the numbers plugged in, it makes it a little more complicated. That's nice when you have kind of decimals in your x values and stuff like that. Otherwise, drawing a graph and counting is just as good. All right, so if we want to find the distance and midpoint between these points, we can just substitute into the formula. So if I want to find the midpoint, remember that's x1, y1, x2, and y2. Sorry, my x2 is a little over. That's the x2. All right. All right. So if I want to find the midpoint equals, and I would actually add that to my formula, m equals for midpoint. M equals x1 plus x2 all divided by 2, comma, and then y1 plus y2 all divided by 2. All right, well, what's 3 plus 1 right here? 3 plus 1 is 4. Divide by 2, that's 2. So my midpoint is 2, comma, and well, that's 4 plus 6. 4 plus 6 divided by 2, well, that's 10 divided by 2, that's 5. The midpoint is 2, comma 5. And it's a little bit quicker for me anyway than graphing it. All right, so if I want to find the distance, you have to use the big long square root formula. So let's substitute in. Let's see. x2 is 1 minus x1 is 3. I'm going to square that. Plus y2 is 4 minus y1 is 6. I've got to square that. So now my distance equals the square root of negative 2 squared, or 1 minus 3 squared. That's just 4. Plus 4 minus 6 is also negative 2. Well, negative 2 squared is also 4. So the distance equals the square root of 8. That, however, unlike the last one, we should reduce. That's 2 times 4, which is 2 times 2 times 2. So pairs come out. This is really 2, and singles stay home alone, 2 root 2. This could also be estimated at 2.8. It's about 2.8 if you put that in your calculator instead. All right, so these next two examples we'll kind of do a little together, and then you're going to do one by yourself. We're going to find the distance and midpoint of each of them. So this first one, midpoint. We'll do midpoint first. If we have x1, y1, and x2, y2. It does help to write that above. We're going to average the x values. x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. Yeah, I just write it as minus 6. I know some of you out there are saying, why'd you write it that way? All right, so this is where it's much easier to use a formula. If I do negative 2 plus 7, that's 5. 5 over 2. You can leave your answer as 5 halves, or you can write 2.5, comma, and then we have negative 6 over 2. That's negative 3. So that's your midpoint. Now I want you to do this other one over here, midpoint formula. Stop the video, pause it, see if you can get the answer. You'll just see the answer up here the next time you turn it on. So stop the video, try it, and see if you can get the answer I get. All right, if you didn't get these two answers, 4.5, comma, negative 4 as your midpoint for the segment HI, then please stop and go through my work and see if you can find your mistake. Then we're going to go back over to the red side, the YO, the segment YO side, and we're going to find the distance. All right? So we're going to find the distance together. Distance equals the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2, that's negative 6, minus y1 squared. All right, now we're going to do the math. Square root. Now 7 minus negative 2, that's 9. 9 squared is 81. Plus. Then that's just negative 6 in this parentheses. Negative 6 squared is 36. Now, 81 plus 36 is 117. So the distance is the square root of 117. That is, in fact, 3 times 39, which can also be thought of as 3 and 13. So that's as far as it goes. So this could be 3, and then 13 stays home alone. It's all alone, so it stays home alone. 3 root 13 is the simplified radical form. You can also write that as 10.8 as an estimate. Okay, I like this answer better because I'm like that. Math is my friend. All right, so I want you to try the distance on the blue side for segment high. I want you to try it and see if you can get the answer I got. Your answer will just show up the next time you open it up, so stop the video and double check if you get my answer. If you don't, look at my work and see if that will help you come up with the answer correctly. All right, so the answer is the square root of 353, which does not have any factors. You cannot reduce it, or so you could either write that or you can write 18.8. Those are either two answers. This is simplified and exact. This is rounded. All right, so go back and double check your work if you need to. I'll see you again tomorrow, and you can ask me any questions the next time we have class. Thanks for everything, guys. Good luck.